I am Tanya Doody, an intermedia artist. I'm here at Open Space where I've done a 3-week residency. And working in the residency, it was to lead up to a show, which came down today, called Impression Formation. And my initial idea was to come into the space and do a real investigation in terms of the history of open space, the building, as well as Open Space, the artist-run center. It's been in operation for 41 years, so there's a long history there, as well as a research into the physical aspects, the building itself, the scars, the features, the unique little sweet spots that are really telltale, I guess, impressions or abrasions on the surface of the space itself. They also tell a history or give an idea of or impression of open space. I also did research into the social in terms of what goes on in the space now, who inhabits the space, and the kind of uses the space undergo, the kind of interactions that happen here socially. And so this sort of 3-prong investigation began with looking. I wandered around the space, observing different areas that I thought might respond well to taking an imprint or an impression of. And my material, through most of my practice, is clay. So I'm a ceramic artist that eventually moved into performance art. So most of my work merges both practices. But in this case, I set about to do, after getting into the process for a while, to do an installation, a sculptural installation. And so, I cast thin sheets of porcelain clay mixed with cellulose fibers, sort of a paper clay, and went around impressing portions of the floor, the walls, taking casts of the stairwells, the corrugated surfaces. I have one of the ceiling, which was very hard to get, and sections of wall as well. And so as this process unfolded, I started to get a constellation of objects to begin to work with in terms of the installation. And a really prominent feature of open space through all of the years that I've come here and attended shows have been these large support beams, 8 by 8, big wooden beams that run through the center of the space. And I cast each side of those, and it was the only piece that I actually constructed or built. Everything else is flat or low relief. But I wanted to reconstruct these pillars or these beams because they're such a prominent feature of the space. So yeah, today was September the 28th, 2013, was the closing of my show. But I've been involved in a performance art workshop for the last 3 days from Vesta and Page. And it's been a really great experience. And we worked over in what used to be my residency space, so it felt very comfortable there. And as the workshop progressed, I started to think more and more about the wonderful group that was part of that experience, and how well we seemed to work together. So I thought that I should be maybe open to having my piece change, having a performance happen in the space, and working with the elements of the installation that I had put there. Just as the installation itself, the clay pieces that I brought to the show, works very closely with the space itself. There's this call and answer or back and forth or dialogue between the castings that I provided and where the castings are from, the space itself. And so I found that the viewer's experience was really quite interactive. People would look and search out and try and seek where it is I took that print from, and they found themselves interested in the floor, not necessarily the sculpture or the installation itself, but it was always a back and forth. And I really liked that, how a performative activity kind of came out of viewership. And so building on that, I thought it would be a little anticlimactic to simply uninstall and pack away my show. So yeah, I opened it up to interaction from the group, and we just did a performance that essentially laid waste to my exhibition. But the first theme of the workshop, the performance workshop, was openness. And so from that point on, I began to let go. Nothing was fired. There was no permanence to the material. Clay can be a record for millennia. We're finding it, and it tells tales of histories, of familial relations, kinship structures that are not even around anymore. And my work didn't have those qualities of permanence, and so already it was set to be let go, to not hold on, to not think of storage, or to think of selling this work, or to think of ever re-showing it or remounting it. It was so site contingent and specific to this space, I couldn't imagine it. So it made perfect sense in that logic to interact in a performative context with the work, which did happen. And it's so new, it happened a half an hour ago, that I'm unable to reflect, but I know that there were moments within that were wonderful in terms of trying to evaluate a performance. I stood quiet and separated quite often because I found myself so interested in what was going on that it was hard to be in the performance mode completely because I had a double role. It was quite a happy, I don't know, quite a good experience to have the work kind of have another life and to continue on and to make memory for all the people that interacted. And, you know, I got very positive feedback from that. So, yeah. There was another aspect of my show, however, that was more about permanence and holding on. I did a series of ceramic commemorative plates commemorating open space in general, and sometimes zeroing in on really specific things, instances that had happened in open space. And those are fired ceramic plates that would likely stay around for a very long time. So yeah, there was always sort of a tension between the two sort of separate things that I presented as the show. Well, during the Integrate Arts Festival, since I was in residence and open space was one of the many stops of all of the galleries around Victoria, I was asked to do a performance. And so I was so much in my residency mode and so bent on trying to imagine what the show would be. I couldn't conceptualize a new piece. I couldn't imagine pulling myself out of that process to then work on something else. So what I did do is I redid a performance that originated when I was in Halifax called Moment and Memento. And what it was an interactive performance where as people came into the gallery and got closer, I would offer them a disc of clay, about a centimeter thick, not quite 3/8 of an inch thick. Disc of clay, I guess, an oval, and on one side was impressed the words moment, word moment. The other side said memento. And so after this, I said, would you like to make an impression with me? And we're so used to a hand being offered in the handshake greeting that, you know, I didn't usually have to say much more. And so the pieces were individual, and they carried the trace of the handshake gesture. They were formed, the discs were formed simultaneously from the action of grasping, my hand grasping theirs and vice versa. So there are quite interesting sort of concave, convex, undulating forms with handprint impressions. And this piece came about early on when I was finding different ways to create a performance document. Instead of necessarily photographing an action or having video of an action, they never hold up as true anyway. And so I thought, instead of introducing some of these media devices that might make the experience strange, might make participants shy to want to interact in the work, to ask something more of them, other than the interaction itself, I thought, I'd like to strip that away and make it be about the moment. But a way of having it not be only about the moment, which is so ephemeral, was the clay disc itself. So I thought it was quite fitting for that piece. And so there are all these, a pile of fired ceramic handshakes, I guess, from that night. And that was, also part of my impression formation process of looking into open space. That was part of the social aspect of that.